Hello again, it's Matt Kelly. Thanks for your interest in Decisive Action. I'm setting up for the second learning mission, and I wanted to show you what the board setup looks like and how I went around doing my planning phase before we get into the actual playing of the game. Okay, here's an overview of how I've got everything set up. I've got all four maps on the table, but I'm playing the one here in the bottom left, which is the National Training Center. And in this mission, we're actually only using the bottom 2/3 of it. So I've drawn in a boundary line there to show where my area of responsibility is. All right, so I wanted to talk about all the other stuff before we get to the map. So over here, you can see you've got the turn sequence here, and it's also got the firepower track. One thing of note up here, we'll get into it a little bit later, is you've got those, these are your asset markers, and I've got them all turned up right now because I'm playing both sides of the table, but normally you would keep them hidden so that your opponent doesn't know what actual asset is coming at each time frame. But that's what those are doing up there. Also, you can see I've got reinforcements coming in on the Russian side at about turn 4. We do not have, we're not playing with any sort of nighttime, so there's no BMNT, but some of the scenarios you could actually, as the attacker, set that at whatever phase you want it between, I think, turn 2 and 5, to kind of do like a, dawn attack. And the weather is clear. I'm not playing with any weather at this point. So that is the game turn track and the firepower track right there. Up here, you'll see I've got, first off, the order of battle. Those are all laid out. You get an option up here depending upon if you want to say you're using a mech infantry battalion or an armor battalion. I've chosen to use an armor battalion, so that's what I don't think it's going to do is affect a little bit of points difference. But here, these are all the remaining units that you would be using as you go through and start to attrit. You'd swap out these for the other counters up there. And then here's the Russian forces. Now they're a lot smaller, but they are the defense in this scenario. So that's about the appropriate force ratio you want to use in this attack. Okay, so the next thing, both sides have one of these. I'll show you over here. This is the Russian tracking chart. And up top, it's tracking a track for how many command points, op points you've got. You've got some tables there that say what the default value should be for depending upon your mission. And then down here, right here, you've got your Russian assets. And depending upon the mission type, you start out with a certain number of available assets, and then you can purchase more at up to a certain quantity for a certain price. And here's the price that you'd be paying for them. Pre-mission and then during the mission. We'll talk about that here in a second. Everything that's available would be in this stack, and then as they are used, or actually not used, but allocated to you to be able to be used, they've moved to the on-call. And then once you've actually, like we showed over here, placed them at a certain time on the turn track, then you'd move them over here to your committed assets. And again, you would keep those hidden. Even in the on-call, you'd probably keep those hidden. In this case, for both my guys, I'm trying to be efficient with my staff and my resources. So I've gone ahead and I've assigned all of those. And now we'll talk about, what you have to do in order to do that well. But since this is my first time playing it with assets, I think I'm going to give it a shot here to see if I can use those more efficiently. Okay, then as we mentioned before, the units, they don't have much information on them. I think about the only information they've got is the number of vehicles and then the troop quality number on it. All the rest of their stats are on the cards up here. So I'll go through this one. So on the T90 here, the white is their main gun. There's also another main gun, which is usually lower than 100 millimeter in caliber. Those are green. Then you're going to have red, which is like your machine gun, small arms, light anti-tank weapons, those type of things. Yellow is your ATGMs. And then, let me see down here, air defense is blue. And I don't have any engineering units, but there would be like a purple color on that. Then on the defense, every unit has a different defense value, but the color determines if it's like light armor, heavy armor, or in the infantry's case, no armor. Okay, and then lastly, movement. There's also some notes about what kind of weapons and platforms that they've got within that unit. There's also some other things later on we'll get into about like this yellow circle around the main gun. That means that it's a limited fire control. And for the moment, I think that's about everything that we could discuss for that. Similar over here on the U.S. side, they've got wide array of equipment on this one. A little bit more different types of pieces. They've got larger force, obviously, on the attack here. So, okay, so wanted to kind of show you how I've set up my Russian defense, because the way this would work is the defender would set up first, and then the attacker would they're going to be coming in off the side over here, right? So I've got all my column markers on here, but I just haven't put them on top yet, so you can see what my force structure is. But one of the things that I'm most excited about this game is the planning ahead and the planning phase. Now, in this scenario, the defender is going to set up between phase line Chevy and phase line Ford, I believe it is, anywhere in that area, and they're supposed to. This is really a force array victory point, right? So in other words, we're worried about attriting the other side. So they're going to try and destroy as many attacking units as they can. So what this defender's decided to do is to defend in depth, and by that I mean you're going to have two units up here, and then way back here you're going to have their supporting vehicles. So what we've got here is an infantry platoon defending on the reverse slope. In other words, we don't want them to be seen until the last minute so they don't get engaged by long-range fires. And then over here we have their supporting vehicles with their AT-5 long-range ATGMs that can range, out to 16 hexes, so like 4 kilometers, right? So it can range beyond this point over here. So this is in depth. So these guys are using wire to try and shape and move the enemy closer to them, so because they don't have very long range weapons, but they want them to force them past there so that they can attack from a flank and slow them down, and basically allow them the time for the platoon vehicles back here to fire them up with ATGM shots, long range ATGM shots, well before the tanks can fire back. So that's what the intent is down here. Now, in the middle on this, what is this brown cut here? I decided that I just want to shut it down. I don't want them to come through there at all, because I want them to come to the south. So again, I've set another platoon here in a reverse slope defense. Well, somewhat reverse slope. It's limited. They're behind this blocking terrain, so the only way anybody's going to shoot them is be right next to them, or indirect fires, obviously, but they got to be able to see them. And then also they're covering that obstacle, so if anybody does try to go through there, they're going to harass them as they do that. So, and then this platoon vehicles is way up north, and their intent is to fire down south into this engagement area here. Flank shots as they're trying to turn around and then assault this eastern objective here. So I also have the headquarters up here with another BMP with an AT-5 on it as well. I've set my mortars back here out of fire. I've got my SAM up here on the hill, and then I have spotters up here for long-range fires to try and harass them as they're advancing through the open over there. So in the end, this is a defense in depth where my first echelon is in a reverse slope defense, and the rear echelon is in a forward slope defense. So, and then over here, we've got the Americans, and I've got some waypoints that I've put in here just to remind me where I want my mortars to go, where I want my artillery to go. And these two waypoints here, these are for me to remember, hey, at this point, that's when I'm going to need to make sure that I pause and make sure that the rest of my assets over here are ready to prep the battlefield, prep before the advance. So I don't want to move forward until I've got some CAS out there and some attack helicopters. So I think, probably about hour one it's going to take me to get there, maybe a little more than that. And I'm going to want to time my assault with the attack helicopters and my reinforcing fires and MLRS. So one last thing I want to show you here is that I have these kind of rubbed them out here, but I pre-plotted targets here, here, and here in order to make it a lot easier to either fire smoke or suppressing fires from indirect fire without having to have a spotter. So I could do those before I actually get there and hopefully suppress and screen my movement as I'm moving forward. So, and on that note, there's a couple things that I didn't show you up here. So each side has a little mission, I guess, what do they call it? It's a worksheet here, right? It talks about what units are available to them and how they've task organized it. And then at the bottom, you see these notes here. I've got my pre-plotted targets down on the left, and I've shown where my wire is and my mines. And then there's a table over there that we talked about before that talks about what the cost is for each one of those wires and mines, and in the entrenchments too. Those also cost money there, or resources. I've done the same thing with the Americans, except they just only have the pre-plotted artillery. And but I did just, I want to show you there. So on the Team A, see, I traded one tank platoon to Team B for 2 infantry platoons. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that I've got a platoon that could assault through here and a platoon that could assault through up here. So I weighted my Alpha team as my primary effort down here in the south. So anyways, I'll play through this, take up some notes, and if you've got any questions or anything in the just leave them down here in the chat section below, and I'll answer those when I can get to them. But I appreciate your time and your interest in decisive action. And just a reminder, go out to P500 on the GMT website to pre-order. All right, until next time, thanks very much. Bye.